Hey everybody, Emily Mayer here, host of Breathe, Hope, Vote, the South Carolina-based podcast for The Arena SC. I am here today with two of the leaders of the College Dems of South Carolina. These are my friends that I have been so privileged to work with on multiple occasions, Sam Grant and Kyle Brantley.
Hey,
They are with us today. I had some scheduled questions, but given the nature of the world right now, I kind of want to start somewhere else if you're cool with it.
Okay.
I want to talk about the debate. I want to talk about the Gen Z opinion on the debate and Joe Biden. But also, I want to talk about the fact that I just saw an FEC filing that might allege that Donald Trump might pick Michael Flynn to be his vice presidential candidate. I just saw that right before we got on, so I want to get some live feedback on should that be true, which again, I don't know if it is, but there is a legitimate FEC filing that would make somebody believe that it could be true. So some initial thoughts.
Well,
I can start off and say that Michael Flynn should not be the vice presidential pick, number one.
correct.
And nor should Donald Trump ever touch the Oval Office ever again, number two. But General Michael Flynn,
Allegedly.
I mean, the fact of the matter is they both tried to overthrow our democracy in one way or
Correct.
another. And then we had one man that we have, if it's allegedly Michael Flynn, it's going to make him look like an idiot. Because why? There's so many things that I have to say, but I can't say them.
But we've talked about this, and this leads to a broader question, I feel like, of who the hell is Donald Trump going to pick? Like,
Right.
we've
Who do
talked
you
about
think?
this ourselves.
Who do you think he's going to pick?
Personally, I think that I can tell you who will not be.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we can work
I think
backwards.
Christy Noam is officially done,
I think
Oh yeah,
Christy Noam.
notice after that whole dog book incident,
Oh,
we
yeah.
haven't really heard
Right.
from
Heard
her
much
again.
from her at all.
Right,
yeah.
but you know who we have been hearing a lot from? Doug Burgum.
Burgum? Burgum?
Yeah.
Burgum.
Doug Burgum. We've been hearing a lot. I mean, on the way down here, I got a CNN alert saying that all eyes are on him in the Trump organization, the Trump campaign, because he's potentially about to pit GOP mega donors against traditional conservatism. What is it? Conservatism.
Conservatism.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
traditional
conservative
conservatism.
movement. Yeah.
Right, I
Right.
guess. But I feel like it's not going to be Vivek Ramaswamy.
And it also won't be Tim Scott as well.
Okay,
Right.
tell me why you think that, because I know here in South Carolina, a lot of people are thinking it might be Tim Scott.
It's not going to be.
It's
Tim
not gonna be
Scott.
Tim Scott.
It's not. He doesn't appeal to their base.
Period.
That-
Point blank period.
No,
Because what people need to realize is the thing about tokens is they end up getting spent. And what's going to happen with Tim Scott, and we all know it, is Donald Trump is going to parade him around wherever he can, surrogating for him,
Right.
trying to scrape up the few black votes that they can muster up in this election. All for nothing. All for Tim Scott to stay right where he is.
For it to not pay off, you're saying.
Right,
correct.
Going
Right.
to use him for all he's worth and not.
Because as Kyle said, it just doesn't fit in with the base. You can't pander, or I don't even want to say pander, but you can't flirt and dance with white supremacy
You
while
can't
having
dog
a black.
whistle.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
It's just not going to work.
Okay. All right. So, on the flip side, Joe Biden, Gen Z, the debate last week. I have some thoughts, but I'm not in Gen Z. So I want to hear Gen Z's thoughts.
So I have to start off with this. Sam and I, we actually watched the debate together in my
Yes.
apartment. And, in the moment, it seemed as if, Joe Biden was proving the Trump's team right. Their entire point, saying that he's old, saying that he's slow or not able to govern the same as he promised us in 2020. But after the debate, Sam and I had a conversation,
Yeah.
and I said, if you really look at it, step away from the moment. In the present, yes, it looked like Joe Biden just sealed his own fate and that America's being handed over to Trump. But at the end of the day, as we all saw the day after the election, people started to realize and started to grasp that it was a comparison. Would you rather have a man who would be energetic and lie and not answer a single question, Or would you rather have a man who's known for stuttering, who's known for in-depth thinking, and knows how to get things done?
And that's the thing. In the reaction that I've seen a lot on social media from a lot of Gen Z, and not even like necessarily political people or people that are like politically involved or usually vote, their response is kind of like, well, we pretty much knew that Joe Biden wasn't going to, be the exciting candidate that, we may want him to be.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a very real acknowledgement of the reality of the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was masterfully used by Joe Biden in his North Carolina rally.
Yeah, what was that, like 12 hours later?
Yes.
A totally different man. I think they probably put a little bronzer on him, tried to play him up a little bit, but yeah, totally different
Yes,
vibe.
but I think that's the messaging, and that's the kind of response that I've been seeing from Gen Z, and I think honestly that's the messaging that we need to have going forward. Is that we acknowledge Joe Biden is old, but
We knew.
Right,
That's not a secret.
Right. Would you rather have an old man, as Kyle said, that's telling the truth, or would you rather have a slightly, and I really want to emphasize that, slightly.
He is also old. They're both old white men.
In the same generation, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
They're born in the same generation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then going back to Gen Z, I mean, we stayed up till 4 a.m. reading Project 2025. And that is that's the reason why we believe that Joe Biden is going to earn and win ultimately the Gen Z vote.
I'm so glad that you said that, and I hope that is the vibe, because I know you guys are very politically aligned, and not all of Gen Z is. Gen Z is more politically motivated than my generation, for sure, but are they motivated enough to have read all of Project 2025 and understand and grasp the danger that is essentially what the entire second term of a Trump presidency would bring, right? That's their entire platform. They're putting it out for the world,
right?
And I want to be like, hey, they're telling us exactly what they're going to do.
When people show you who they are. That's one of my favorites.
You have to believe them.
But then this week we also saw the narrative shift into not necessarily Biden versus Trump, but like, should it be somebody else? And that's been a really interesting narrative to see unfold, because like you said, we knew that we were getting two old white men on that debate stage. That's not a surprise.
And now, to that question, we really have one response, and that we always say to people when they present that: who?
That is my question.
If you can give me a name. I
tell Sam all the time, you give me a name, if you can give me a better option than President Joe Biden,
that can pull together the movement needed to defeat Donald Trump in 4 months. Come on now.
Then I'll support you.
Right.
But until I see somebody else other than Joe Biden who can say that they have personally defeated a Trump or Donald Trump, then I don't want to see any ideas of people saying that we should replace Joe Biden. Point blank, full stop.
That's been my sentiment, right?
Yeah.
Like, if there's somebody who's going to definitely beat Donald Trump, but I don't think that I believe that there is anybody else who can defeat Donald Trump.
Gen Z's always talking about, Governor Gavin Newsom, with all respect to him, but realistically, what
now it's just not his time. Now it's just not his time.
Well, also the fundraising piece, right? Like, he raised $34 million following the debate, and that can only go to him or Kamala Harris. That can't just go to whoever else they step up. So for me, it's like, okay, well, if it's not Joe Biden and we had to pick somebody else, like if he were to make the decision himself, and I think that's the only way that anything changes, is if he makes that decision himself. I think other than that, this is like a lot of hot air about nothing.
Correct.
But to see people gloss over the vice president as if she hasn't had a historic 3.5 years herself. Like, and she's entitled as the vice president to be that next person in line. Like, that feels disrespectful.
Absolutely.
So, okay, I'm glad that we're all on the same page about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, well, maybe this is just me being old.
No, because to be honest, it would be a missed opportunity if it was anybody but Kamala.
Exactly. And honestly, if that, God forbid, were to happen, Joe Biden were, for some reason to step aside, then the only other answer is Kamala Harris, in my opinion.
Yeah.
She is the only other person with that national standing, and she is the only other person that war chest can go to.
Correct. And he
besides
selected
President Biden.
her for a
Yes.
reason, right?
Right.
There's a reason Barack Obama selected Joe Biden, right? Obama knew he was green. He needed somebody with institutional knowledge and reverence, and he selected that in Joe Biden.
Yes.
Conversely, Joe Biden said, I know I'm an old white man.
Right.
I need to pick somebody who brings a different piece to the puzzle, and was very intentional in selecting Kamala Harris. And I think it's a disservice to both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to this narrative that it's going to be anybody else
Right.
besides one of the two.
Exactly.
Right, but we shouldn't even be having this conversation because Kamala Harris even said, the vice president even said, why compare a 90-minute debate to 3.5 years?
Right.
I mean, we were able to see the PACT Act, where millions of veterans are now insured with health insurance, eyes, ears, everything in between. And then if we look at the Chips and Science Act, we're now able to reinvest almost $50 billion annually into newer, cleaner jobs. So if you can give me one other candidate, if you can give me one other candidate that has ever done as much as this administration,
This has
then
been
again,
the most productive
Right.
administration
I was
in
going to say,
American
I think in
history.
history you'd be
Yes.
have a hard time finding somebody who's been more productive.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. No. Okay, so Biden-Harris campaign, if you're listening, it sounds like you got two really good surrogates here in South Carolina for Gen Z. So I'm just saying, you let us know, we'll connect you. Okay, so I feel like because we really just jumped in off the deep end, I didn't even give you guys a chance to explain about College Dems and the work that you do and why I even asked you to be on this show to begin with your skills and expertise. So please introduce yourself to the world now that we've just gone on this soapbox rant.
Alrighty, well, hello everybody. I am Sam Grant. I am the president of College Democrats of South Carolina.
And my name is Kyle Brantley. I serve as the vice president of College Democrats of South Carolina.
So tell us about the College Dems. What kind of work do y'all do? Where do you have chapters? If people wanted to start a chapter on their college campus, give a little plug for the College Dems before I get into more questions.
Yes, so we represent College Democrats at the statewide level. And we have individual campus chapters. We have chapters here in the Low Country at Charleston Southern and College of Charleston. We have the Midlands covered with University of South Carolina. And we have the upstate as well with Clemson, Wofford, and Furman. And we are only growing and expanding. So if you're interested in starting a College Democrats chapter, I strongly encourage you to look at your school's requirements for starting a club. And after that, reach out to us at the State Federation so that we can assist you in that process, helping you get membership and helping you grow your campus chapter.
Love it. Okay, so what's some of the work that the College Dems have been up to? I mean, I know y'all were busy during First in the Nation.
Yes,
we could talk
extremely.
about that a little
Yeah.
bit. I know y'all plug in for some swing races in some other states with Common Power and some of the work y'all do there.
Whoop whoop.
So let people know about some of the work and some of the opportunities because of your leadership in College Dems that have been afforded to you. Because I want to brag on all the stuff you've been able to do for a minute. Tell us the coolest part, the coolest experience you've gotten to have through College Dems.
I would say the coolest experience would just be all the connections that we've made. I mean, every event that we go to or that we're invited to, we're always meeting new and different people, especially those who actually want to learn more in the perspective of the youth. I mean, we get hit every day with the question of why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we doing more? To go back to your original question as to what our goal is, our goal, yes, it is to in turn turn out the youth vote, and especially among the college students. But our primary goal is to have themselves become educated and informed voters, so they know what's on the ballot. They know who they're voting for. They know if candidate A is their option versus candidate B. There's a lot of college students that we run into who tell us that they take a glance at our Instagram page and that they've been able to vote based off of what we posted or voted based off of advice that we have had with them or given them through conversations that we've had individually. So that's really the goal of College Democrats, and that's some of the coolest parts.
Yeah, and in addition to College Democrats, as you mentioned, we also work with Common Power, a phenomenal organization based out of Seattle. And their whole goal as a political action committee is to go and advocate and knock doors for candidates that protect the values that we share in our organization, which is the values of democracy, preserving it, protecting just the American institution and our ideas that are really under a threat in this new wave of MAGAism and political extremism that we've been seeing. So with Common Power, we have the opportunity to go to the states where we can really make the most impact. And they specifically target the races where we could make the most impact. And this year in 2024, we're working on a lot of crucial races that could
14 states, right?
14 states, yeah, that could end up deciding control of the House or the Senate. We're going to swing states such as Montana for Tester's race. We're going to Ohio for Sherrod Brown.
Wisconsin,
Yes.
Arizona, Nevada, all over the country.
Wow. And you've helped put South Carolina on their radar too, I know. Like you've said, hey, there's some really interesting stuff going on here. And I know, in some special elections in the past, Common Power has really shown up to help in those races that maybe people don't even realize are on their ballot because
Right.
they're off cycle or they're a special election or whatever like
Yeah.
that. So
Yes.
there's a mutual benefit to South Carolina for you going out to other states, but then also bringing to the spotlight for them some of the races we have going on here.
Right.
Yes.
But I would also add on to say the knowledge that we bring back from those trips, the knowledge and the amount of acuity that we're able to bring back from, let's say, a state like Ohio or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania.
Or Virginia.
Perfect example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect example. From everything of learning more of how to craft certain messaging to match your audience or something along the lines of how can we make something better than what it already was, having that feeling of hope once again and being able to push that into somebody else. That's something that Common Power has given us, and I don't think we will ever take it away for granted.
Yeah, it's like whenever we're going out on these trips and, doing this work, and we know the important states that are on the line. And, more often than not, thankfully, we end up winning.
That's great. That's always a bonus. Yes.
But it's so good, and it always really energizes us. And we, like Kyle said, we come back here with new ideas, new perspectives, and things to bring to campaigns and the democratic institutions here in South Carolina to strengthen it. And I think that is just the best thing ever. And I think that overall, just as a Democratic Party in South Carolina, we can learn a lot from other states.
Right.
Because the definition of insanity, need I say it
The
anymore?
quiet part out loud.
Well, yeah, I hear people all the time say, well, how come we can't be like Georgia? Or now North Carolina is really in play, right? I hear people in South Carolina lamenting that over and over. And it's like, well, we have to show up and do the work here
Right.
to get to that point.
It takes infrastructure.
Right. And that's the thing about South Carolina. Honestly, we do not have an infrastructure. We know that everyone, regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat, we don't have the infrastructure here. I mean, look at Georgia. It took Stacey Abrams a decade to turn it blue to where it is today. Look at North Carolina. Radical change of organization skills.
Right.
So, I mean, until we catch up, we're always going to be looking at other states and feeling a certain way towards them. But it really starts with our state party, and it starts with how we organize, and it starts with how we create an infrastructure
And how we mobilize our voters so
Right.
that they can turn out when we need them to turn out.
Right. Okay, so when we talk about the impact of Gen Z, we have seen across the nation the impact that Gen Z has on some of these
Yes.
elections. Here in South Carolina, how are we mobilizing Gen Z for this upcoming election? Because we have an unprecedented slate of candidates up and down the ballot here in this
Yes.
state. We have races that we lost in 2022 that we should be able to get those seats back if
Yeah.
the right people show up to vote.
Absolutely.
So what are the college Dems doing to really focus the attention of Gen Z in some of these critical areas?
So, at my school, at the University of South Carolina, I remember clearly my freshman year when I went to my first USC football game, and we were singing the national anthem, and everyone was chanting "F Joe Biden." And I remember telling people that the refund you got wasn't because of the school or because of the state. it was because of Joe Biden.
Period.
When people talk about their student loans going down drastically from maybe $30,000 to $15,000, that wasn't because of the school. That was because of Joe Biden. He's trying to make sure that when you go off in the world and you try to buy a home, you don't have to buy an extra room for Sally Mae because you had it for so long you thought it was a dog. That's what he was trying to do.
I hope the Biden campaign's listening to that. That was a good line.
Yes.
That's what he was trying to do. And that's what I tell people at USC all the time. You can't blame Joe Biden for everything of what's going wrong in your life. I mean, sometimes
And
you
not
can.
give him praise for anything that's going right.
Right,
Correct.
because the thing is, if you go on WIS or WLTX or watch Fox, the day that Joe Biden announced that he was going to forgive almost $600 billion worth of student loan debt, tell me, what did the students of USC say? Well, I'm so thankful that Joe Biden cleared my student loans because now I can restart my financial life off to a great start.
Period.
So you can't tell me that he has done nothing for Gen Z.
So that's what we're doing, honestly, is, as Kyle was talking about earlier, really honing in on that education piece specifically for our college students and making these concepts in politics that seem so huge and seem so big, making them personable to people, telling them in what ways specifically these elections are going to impact them, telling them about the candidates' records. And that is one thing that, we were talking about in a debate yesterday with someone that was advocating for replacing Joe Biden.
Oh.
And
We had a field day with him.
yes.
Look, I love that you all are
Yeah.
engaging in that discourse. It has to happen.
He was so intent. He was just like, politics is about being loud and being charismatic. And it's just not going to happen for the Democrats with Joe Biden. And, of course, me and Kyle are slapping our heads because, that is just the most, blatantly infactuous statement that we had heard that day.
Right.
But, we were really real with him. And we were just like, when it comes down to the record, there is no comparison. So Trump can be as loud as he wants to. They can make all the noise that they want to. But there's a reason why Donald Trump isn't doing any field work. There's a reason why you're not seeing any organizers for Trump going around, because he has nothing to run on. So make all the noise you want to. But at the end of the day,
Right.
it's only going to take you so far when there is nothing to back it up.
And then on top of that, I mean, we're all going to feel the effects of a Biden presidency.
Right.
We felt the effects under a Trump presidency. Why do you think inflation's so high now? This is because of his policies. When you think of something along the lines of student loans, we're feeling that policy now.
Right.
We're not waiting 4 extra years. We're feeling it now. People are now able to restart their financial lives. People are now able to not only have to work 3 jobs to cover utilities, light, and car insurance, but they can now work 1 job where they no longer have to worry about whether or not if they have to sacrifice their education for a roof over their head or sacrifice a roof over their head just for an education. And that's what we've been honing in on.
Educating the youth, the Gen Z voters, the next set of leaders in our
Yes.
country, setting the facts straight. All right. So the first time that I got to collab with you fine gentlemen was on the Lisa Ellis campaign back in
Yes.
2022, which remains one of the highlights of my life. Just a fantastic experience and opportunity. But we worked our butts off
We
to
did.
make sure that people knew the truth about what they were going to get in an Ellen Weaver administration.
And they didn't believe us.
We
And
tried to
look
tell
what's
them.
happening.
We tried to
Look
tell them.
what's happening.
Yeah, so that's what I want. I want to talk about what we knew to be true about Ellen Weaver and now what is happening under the Ellen Weaver administration in our state, because
we
y'all are seeing it.
We were telling people that she was a far-right extremist to begin with, and no one wanted to believe us.
Honestly, I think it's even worse than
It-
what we were trying to tell people it was
Oh,
going to be.
absolutely.
It was only until we realized that she was getting rid or pushing for the dissolvement of AP African American history and banning books. That's when people woke up.
Right. Now people
Exactly.
are upset. And it's like, well, it's too late. Like, we tried to tell you.
Right.
And especially we tried to tell the 12,000 unregistered teachers that they needed to register to vote.
And show up.
Now,
and vote for their teacher ally and teacher colleague in Lisa Ellis.
I think out of all the things that we learned on that campaign, that fact alone, I think that was honestly
Let's
just the
repeat
most
it.
sickening
Let's
to
repeat
all
it
of
for
us.
everybody.
12,000 teachers are registered to vote in the state of South Carolina. And we wondered why we're in the state that we're in.
Exactly.
I mean, this is going to come off pretty mean, but you can't make noise, but also not put in the effort as well.
You have to go
Period.
vote. I tell
Right.
people all the time, if you're not going to vote, you don't get to complain about the outcome.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, I feel kind of bad, honestly, for our educators' organizations in South Carolina. They get so much pushback. But when we have 12,000 educators that aren't even voting, it's just like, at that point, what can the SCEA do?
Right.
What can SC for Ed, when they were active, what could they do at that point? There has to be the voting bloc to support these policies that teachers want to see so that we can get salary increases, so that they can get the benefits that other state employees are just getting with bills passing year after year
Right.
and teachers being left out.
You're not going to get the power in the policy if you don't have the power at the polling booth.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and we're seeing that firsthand. But we tried to tell people as loud and as clear as we could. Ellen Weaver was not hiding who she was and what she stood for while she campaigned, right? It wasn't like she pretended to be a moderate and then got into office and put extreme policies through.
Right.
Correct.
She was an extremist from
the get-go.
start.
And she was telling us what she was going to do.
Right.
And even being on the opposing side on Lisa Ellis's campaign, and even going out and telling people, regardless of political party, Democrat, Independent, or Republican, that this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to impact you and your children, and all 12,000 unregistered teachers still refuse to go unregistered to vote.
Right.
Well,
Then honestly, and this one, honestly, I feel like can't even be blamed solely on the Democrats, because we all know that Ellen Weaver bought that primary runoff. And that-
absolutely.
Where were
She
we?
should have
Red-
never been that nominated.
We were at Red Socket with Jenny, right?
Yeah.
And when we watched that race, and it was so sickening because within the
Her
first
runoff
5
against
minutes,
Kathy Manis.
within
yeah.
the first 5 minutes, they called it for Ellen Weaver.
Yeah, because she got nearly $1 million poured in from Jeffrey Yes,
Yep.
who now is in Pennsylvania doing the same damn thing, pushing the school choice, pushing the vouchers, pushing the private schools, pushing the indoctrination of religion in our schools. He did that here. He's the reason that we have Ellen Weaver. He bankrolled that primary. It could have been Kathy Manis, who has a background in education, more of a Molly Spearman type, right, versus Lisa Ellis. And honestly, as much as I still would have supported Lisa, I think we would be in a much better place
With Kathy.
as
Absolutely,
opposed to,
yeah.
to Ellen. Now we have Ellen, who is hiring lawyers who went with her to Bob Jones University.
I saw on your Twitter, I believe, like $262 an hour.
Yeah, $225 an hour for an additional $41,000 in addition to the council already on staff for the State Department of Education. So they already have full-time lawyers, but this guy is allegedly a donor of hers, that allegedly a pal and a buddy of hers.
That's all I needed to hear.
Right.
That's all I needed to hear.
Case closed.
So how do we fix it? What do we, you guys are the people who are being impacted. Your Gen Z counterparts who are still in high school yet to graduate on to college are being impacted, can't take those AP classes, can't have access to some of these AP texts that they need to now
Yep.
under this book removal policy. Is it too late? I mean, what do we say? What do we do?
I don't know. I'm gonna give that to you.
Well, all I know is what do I believe? It's 2026 is the next superintendent of education election. So to those 12,000 teachers, I'm gonna need y'all to log on to scvotes.org right now and register to vote. And even if you're in college and this election is not going to affect your education. For my college students, if you have younger siblings that are in K through 12 schools in South Carolina, and if you want them to have the same educational experience and enrichment that you had, or on the flip side, if you want them to have an even better educational experience and enrichment that you had, then you need to vote accordingly. Do your research. And let's vote for actual educators,
Right.
qualified educators who are not going to destroy the Department of Education, number one.
Not only that, but they're not bought and paid for.
Correct.
Right.
That's the major thing. Because look, Jeffrey, yes, he sat there and he donated, to your point, almost $1 million to her campaign. Now, if I saw that and on her ethics, and it was almost $1 million poured into her campaign, that would have been my first red flag.
Exactly. I'm like, why is this man trying to buy the South Carolina
Who is this
public
man
school system?
and why? Yeah, does he even live here? No, he does not. And that should have been a question everyone was asking.
Right.
Right. And not only are these two leaders of the college Dems in South Carolina, but you grew up in the public school systems here in South Carolina. So you can speak to what it's like. You know, Molly Spearman had a background in education, right? We might not have loved her. Teachers might have had some issues with her, but was doing what she knew to be best through her educational experience from public schools. People, I mean, to this day, people still come up to me and say, I can't believe Ellen Weaver bought that master's degree. And I'm like,
We tried
to tell you.
I don't even know what to say when people tell me that. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I worked my butt off to make sure.
We tried to tell you, but everything is not like it seems. Everyone wants to turn a blind eye to it until it comes up to bite them in the ass. That and it's just sad at this point.
Yeah. So honestly, this is a lesson for South Carolina voters, and you know, at the end of the day, you know, while we are so strong on party affiliation in South Carolina, it truly doesn't matter.
Because I will say that election night very much proved to me, in some instances, you have to put state over party.
Correct.
In some instances,
and that was one of those instances in which it needed to be done. And now we are dealing with the consequences of, you know, all of those voters that, you know, knew that this woman was unqualified, that knew that she had never set foot in a classroom in, you know,
in a public school
ever.
I mean, she did once to film a campaign ad, but other than that,
and you know, she definitely didn't step into a classroom at Bob Jones University, but
no one wants to talk about that one.
Yeah. So this is just a question that came to me, and we have never had this conversation until just now, so this is going to be like a real genuine reaction. But a lot of 2022 was a lot of white people on our ticket.
Okay.
Right? We had Joe Cunningham, we had Lisa Ellis, right? We had on our congressional races, right? We had Annie Andrews.
Yeah.
And we saw that lack of black voter turnout impact some of these races,
absolutely.
like the House 118, like Chardell Murray down in the Low Country, like Shedron Williams right over in Jasper County, right? Those are seats that have consistently been Democratic seats held by black representatives in largely black areas that flipped, like, unexpectedly.
Right.
Do you think that if we had a more diverse top of the ticket in 2022 and more black voters were encouraged to come out, that would have made a difference in our race, in the Lisa Ellis race?
Honestly, it would have, but it also wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have been enough.
It wouldn't have, because there are a lot of teachers. Lisa Ellis was my teacher for 3.5 years, so, but yeah, I had to make that perfectly clear. But here's the thing: a lot of black teachers didn't see themselves in Lisa. A lot of older black teachers didn't see themselves in Lisa. In 2022, in my mind, she could do no wrong. I could see myself in her, so that means everyone else could. But it was until 2024 came around that I realized I understand why they didn't see themselves in Lisa.
That's a really important reflection that we never really had as a team.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it would have made a difference, because it would have said that there was a lot more diversity of those who were supporting her, within her voting bloc. but it wouldn't have been enough because of the political redlining.
Right.
It wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah.
And now, personally, I am biased towards Mia McLeod. I do personally think that Mia McLeod, if she was the nominee, totally different ballgame.
Okay, all right.
But I don't think people saw themselves in Lisa, and that was the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like more Republicans saw themselves in Ellen Weaver than anyone else could ever see themselves in Lisa.
And that's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's highly problematic. Especially when I feel like there's so many people who come up that I hear from or hear about, and they're like, oh, well, my sister's a teacher. Oh, my mom was a teacher. Oh, and I'm like, okay, so are you voting in line with what you know would be a value to them?
Right.
Like, but because it's not a personal value to them, they themselves are not a teacher. They don't have a child in public schools. They don't whatever. Like, it's not directly impacting their day-to-day life.
Exactly.
So you can tell me that you love and respect teachers all you want because your mama was a teacher, but you're not voting that way.
And I feel like that was definitely, I would say, one of the critical problems that we were running into, on the campaign. Where, the face of education, especially in South Carolina, looks very different than, it did when the last Democratic superintendent of education from our state, when Inez Tannenbaum, when she won. And I feel like that personal connection to education that you were talking about, the personal stake in it is really missing and was really missing in 2022.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that was there, then it would have motivated and it would have prompted that concern that we were looking for. And it would have really prompted those conversations over kitchen tables. Do we really want this unqualified woman running the Department of Education?
Yeah, and I think something else that we spent some time talking about on the campaign, but in the last 2 years I've seen really amplified, that I don't think that I truly understood the scope of in 2022, was the conversation around school choice in Black families.
Yes.
And the lie that they're being sold that school choice is better for Black families because of the public schools in their areas.
Yeah, because it was around the Democratic convention back in 2022, and unfortunately Lisa couldn't make it. And I was tasked with going into a very impoverished community in Richland County. And, me being there and talking to the service workers, those who were just walking around with their children. Now, mind you, this is a majority Black neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And, I went up, did my little spiel saying why we should vote for Lisa Ellis in the Democratic primary. And I remember one woman, she came and asked me and said, well, why would I vote for Lisa Ellis, who's against school choice? And my daughter has the opportunity of having a better education somewhere else. And I explained to her that, that's the concept of school choice, but that's really not the idea of school choice.
Right, and that's not the reality that we're seeing play out.
Right, because I explained to that woman that even though your daughter's going to have a better education somewhere else, I completely agree with that. You, do what's best for your family and do what's best, what you believe is best for your child. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you should be able to financially diminish and take away money from a local public school who's not even getting enough attention from the state.
Right, there's a reason you're needing to leave your public schools.
Exactly.
Right.
And so...
And especially when we start the conversation of vouchers, that is what we really need to get past.
Right.
Because, I can see why, there would be some Black families, latching on to that promise. Because, it does sound great. The opportunity that, my child would be able to receive this voucher and be able to, attend this much better private school. Mm-hmm. But in reality, like you said, we know how that functions and we know what kind of kids are getting those vouchers. And unfortunately, it is not for the Black kids that just need a chance and that just need another opportunity.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about some highs of the work that you do. What has been some of the challenges, some of the roadblocks and obstacles that you maybe didn't expect or have been a little bit more difficult to overcome that you might need some support from the general public?
I didn't know that our ages would mean so much to so many different people in regards to what we should or should not be doing.
Say more. I want to know more about that.
There have been multiple instances where people have said that we do not belong in a specific room because of our age.
Because you're too young.
Because of for all the Republicans that like to watch, our youth and inexperience.
Yep.
For some reason, age means some things to them. even though we're in the
But
same...
these are the same people who are saying Joe Biden and Donald Trump are too old. So
Right.
there's got to be like a perfect middle ground for them.
Right.
You're too young and inexperienced, but they're too old. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was clear.
But it's also the fact that there are some people within our party, even in South Carolina Democratic Party, who think that we're too young, who think that we shouldn't have access into certain rooms, or
Wait your turn.
we should wait our turn. And,
Exactly. Or do the task and responsibilities that they want us to do.
Like social media.
Uh-huh.
Let me tell you how many times, as the youngest person in the room, I've been asked to do social media for people. But
Right.
yes.
Or just basically, sending us out, canvassing long hours that nobody else wants to do. So, and to those people, I always say, well, if we can go out and, we can be the only ones going canvassing, then we can also be the ones in party meetings making decisions as well.
Right.
If we're going out and talking to voters and, doing these laborious tasks that nobody else wants to do, if you're going to send us to do those things, then guess what? We can also have responsibility in county and party leadership as well.
Right, but then also on top of that, these are the same folks who tell us that we're too young and inexperienced, but yet they do a whole 180 and ask us why we aren't doing anything for the youth. So, to the people out there who think that we're too young and inexperienced, if I see you doing better, I'll agree with you. But until then, we know who we are. We know what we deserve, especially being a part of Gen Z. And we know that instead of being a part of a kitchen table, we want the whole table.
Period.
Yeah, I love that. And Kyle and Sam were hugely supportive and instrumental when I stepped up to run for office, and they made the trip down to Bluffton to knock doors alongside of me. I want to add, not for me, but alongside of me.
Yes.
And so they are workhorses, but they can't be the only workhorses.
Right.
There's got to be more. There's got to be more joining. All right. Coming out of the primaries, coming out of the runoffs,
Ooh.
what are your surprises? What are your takeaways? What did you think would happen versus what actually happened?
I didn't think we'd have the great-grandson of Robert Smalls being our party's nominee for the 1st Congressional District.
Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't expect Michael to beat Mac.
No, I did
Okay.
not.
We did not.
I don't even know where to start with that.
Out of all the races that I thought you were going to say, I didn't think you were going to bring that one up. That's so interesting. I didn't think that would be the first one to come out of your mouth.
I mean,
I'm still
that was really the most
flabbergasted off of
shocking.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really close. It was a really
It
close
was.
race. I think probably closer than a lot of people deemed it from the start.
Right.
Which really spoke, in my opinion, to the work that the Mac DeFord campaign put in.
Yes.
Because I don't think people, if at the beginning when both of them announced, if you were to have asked the politicos of South Carolina, they would have thought it would have been a blowout.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, for sure.
I'm very always concerned about that race. I'm always thinking back about that race, thinking what could have been more different than what the results already were. Because, I mean, I understand why people may have voted for Michael B. Moore, and if you did, so be it. That's great for you. But it's the fact of the matter that he had no plans. Not
Correct.
one idea. And
that was demonstrated perfectly
During the
debate that we thought. Like,
yeah, he didn't have any good ideas. He didn't have an answer to any questions. In regards to the question of something along the lines of what would you do to ensure that there's more money going towards infrastructure in the state of South Carolina, Matt gave a perfect answer. But then when you flip the script and you have a candidate
saying bring in the bacon
Bring
or
the
something.
bacon home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want Porky Pig on my roads.
Bye.
So with this year, the top of the ticket, other than presidential, being congressional, how do you motivate your Gen Z voters in Congressional 1 to go out and support Michael B. Moore and then the down ballot candidates that they might have on their ballots?
This is the education part about college
Yes.
Democrats that I like, because we actually push our own members to go to different meetings, go to different political meetings, whether that be
Yes.
county parties, state party events, what have you, and go and ask questions.
And then oftentimes as well, bringing candidates onto campus and
Right.
hosting gatherings there so they can come directly to meet with college students.
Right, because the thing is, we don't want you to get lost and then try to figure out the last minute, how can I do what's best for me and my
Right.
community? We want you to already be well informed. So go and ask questions. Keep asking questions until you get your answer. Do whatever you need to do that will make you a certified 100% bolded and underlined educated voter.
Okay. All right. What other races surprised you? Did you expect Ott to pull it out over Harpootlian?
Yes,
You did.
yes,
Okay.
and we are so proud of Russell. You know, we were just talking, and you know, we were just feeling so relieved after that election, and that, you know, he was able to pull it out, and that, you know, the Senate is getting truly a hard worker and somebody that is going to go to work every day and advocate for the issues that matter to South Carolinians,
and not have an unexcused absence in the Senate.
Yeah.
Just so they can defend a murderer and not even win.
So, a question that I was asked before that primary result came out that I'm going to turn around and I want to hear your answer. Somebody said to me, I am amazed to see so many younger Democrats under the age of 40, coming out in support of Russell Ott when he hasn't aligned with the party's platform fully regarding abortion and gun rights. But yet, we did have young Democrats knocking doors and staffing that campaign. What would be your answer to that person who said that to me?
because Russell sees us.
He's one of us.
Yeah.
When he told us what his entire campaign platform what it was, I mean, he is one of us. He knows what the average South Carolinian goes through. I mean, for God's sake, he's a farmer. He knows what the average South Carolinian goes through, and especially his community. He knows what's best for him and his community.
You saw that. Calhoun County
Yes.
showed up.
Yes.
Highest turnout in far and away for Calhoun County.
Because they know Russell, and Russell knows them.
And he put in the work. I mean, the months and months of door knocking that he put into this. I mean, honestly, it is that drive, and I feel like it is that heart that we need back in Democratic politics in South Carolina. I feel like we've lost that fight. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Russell has just shown us that, you know, it is possible. Because if we look at the circumstances that, you know, he was up against, you know, with such a strong name as Dick Harpootlian.
And the fundraising
and the
dollars,
money.
yeah.
Right. Yes. And the political connections. You know, I feel like that election, you know, under a microscope is kind of what all Democrats in South Carolina are going up against.
It was a great case study in money versus people power.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And he had the people power and ended up pulling it out. So I think a lot of Democrats can take a very important message from that campaign, because unfortunately for us in this state, at least for the foreseeable future, the money is just not going to be there. Mm-hmm. So that is when we really have to hone in and rely on that grassroots mobilization and that organization piece, and really bringing the politics back to the people.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think it's really interesting to see somebody like Russell Ott come out successful despite not having 100% voting alignment with Democratic values, when on the opposite side of the aisle, you see the South Carolina GOP see one woman take one toe out of line on an issue that's important to them, and they said, you're done.
You're done.
You're our target. We're taking you out. So I think it's like a really interesting moment where people talk about party loyalty and this and that Democrats are really the big party tent, right? Somebody like Russell Ott can be successful in the Democratic Party in a Democratic primary against a strong Democrat because of the time he spent in his community and the relationships that he's built, as opposed to somebody like a Katrina Shealy who has built all those relationships in her community. But when her party turned their back on her, that was the end of the conversation.
Because, you know, loyalty will only get you so far. That's the issue. Voters don't understand that as a politician, loyalty can only get you so far. At the end of the day, there are always going to be politicians that have an issue in front of them, and they're able to separate themselves. This is not political. This is personal. And so, seeing...
And at the end of the day, people are not voting for parties anymore. We know that. People are voting for ideals, and the ideals that matter to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, thankfully for us, you know, in the Democratic Party, you know, that's why, you know, we are able to see so many Republicans that are able to break away from their party and support Joe Biden for president because it's about the ideals for them. It's about the ideas of upholding democracy. It's about the ideas of protecting our government institutions and our Constitution and the values associated with it. And that is why I feel like we can confidently go around and say that we're not worried about Joe Biden continuing this election.
Right.
Because we know that he has that coalition support and that movement to win.
Okay. All right. I love it. All right. As we wrap up here, the 3 closing questions that I ask every guest on my show. What do you do when you need to catch a breath in this work? We're going to start with breathe, right? Breathe, hope, vote. What do you do when you need to catch a breath? This is a hard work. You do hard things. You try to convince a lot of people to do things that maybe they don't want to be doing or getting involved with. How do you ground yourself?
You want to go first?
I mean, to be honest, I was telling Sam this yesterday. I had my first job being at 16. I used to work at this place called Plex Highwire, a trampoline park in Sand Hills. I like to drive past it every couple of months or so to just laugh. That's how I ground myself, because I remember how hard I worked to get to where I am today as a 21-year-old. So I take that as a moment and as an opportunity to humble myself and to always sit and always think, it doesn't matter how far you are in life, the work never stops. And you have to keep going.
And for me, every time I need to ground myself, I always just try and turn to my other hobbies and activities and things I do outside of politics. I feel like when you do the work so often like we do, sometimes it can be really easy to get lost in the sauce a little bit. And, sometimes you really forget that, this is not who I am. This is not everything I am. It may be what I'm doing, but, I am so much more than this. And, sometimes it really just helps to, do something else, to explore other passions. I know for me, a big thing is music. I have always loved learning instruments, singing, and I'm always annoying Kyle all the time. Belting my Broadway shows and stuff like that. But, that really helps ground me and, really just helps to give me a break when I'm lost in the sauce.
Oh, I needed to hear that. Politics is what you're doing. It's not who you are. I
Yeah.
think I needed that reminder, so thank you. All right, so that was breathe. Hope. What is giving you hope? What is motivating you to continue on this fight? Who's going first?
Generally, it's just the fact that, the work never stops.
Yeah.
Like, it really doesn't. There's always something that can always be tweaked for the better. And to be honest, that's the thing I'm running on. There's always something better. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
We can always make something better. We can always make something more of what we already have. And it doesn't matter regardless of what's in our way. We just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And honestly, I think Kyle was kind of alluding to, in some ways, doing the work is what gives us hope. Mm-hmm. Because in doing the work, we are talking to voters every day who aren't like us, who aren't these hyper, political people. Mm-hmm. And when we are hearing from them the same message that we're saying, reflected back to us, it is so motivating and it's so inspiring, because it's just like, at the end of the day, when you get away from all the noise and when you are just talking to everyday people, you realize that the loud voices are a lot less loud and a lot less populist than you think they are.
I think that's really important at this juncture in American politics, that people are just like getting on Twitter and shouting out all these crazy things, but that's not necessarily reflective of what the everyday person is feeling or thinking. All right, last question. Vote. What election on the ballot this November are you most looking for? I'm talking about the state of South Carolina. We can talk about Joe Biden in Congress, but I'm talking about at the State House. What is the race you have your eye on? Who are you most excited to see pull out?
Me personally, John Moffitt, running for State House in Charleston, District 110, I think it is. I am very excited for him. I think that he has a really good chance of flipping that district. And so if you are in the Low Country right now and you want to support a race and potentially flip a seat for Democrats in the State House, go support John Moffitt.
Love it. What about you?
I'm still on Russell Ott's race.
Okay, you're still watching that race.
I know it's a safe Democratic seat, or somewhat a safe Democratic seat.
Can't take no chances.
Yeah, that's what
days.
hey.
Yeah, don't sleep on it. That's what happened in 2022.
Ooh.
Well.
Oops.
Anyways, but I'm still on the Russell Ott race, because even though it looks like he has a very good chance of winning, you can never always be too sure. You can never always be too sure. And it's the fact of the matter that, let's say there is an upset and it doesn't work out in his favor. That's okay. We always know that there's someone else that will do the work 10 times harder and better than him.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we don't want to take any votes.
Him being the Republican.
Thank you.
The Republican.
There were clarification.
Thank you for clarifying. I do appreciate that. No, we can't ever make an assumption that any seat is safe or that any voter is predetermined, right? We can't say that we're guaranteed any outcome. So definitely still doing that work and making sure that voters know that they're valued and their vote matters. There's nothing worse as a voter than feeling as if people are taking your vote for granted, for sure. All right. If you're interested on a college campus in our state of joining I almost said Young Democrats. College Democrats.
College
Democrats. There's a difference. College Democrats. There's high school Democrats and there's Young Democrats. 3 different groups. College Democrats. If you are on a college campus in our state and you're interested in plugging in, Kyle and Sam are your people. If you already have a chapter on your campus, go find them, join them, stop by an event, introduce yourselves. They're not scary. If you're on a campus that does not have a chapter,
I promise you, we'll help you start one.
Yes.
We will help you.
Yes, absolutely. So that was Kyle and Sam. I'm Emily Mayer. This was Breathe Hope Vote through the Arena SC. Make sure you are subscribing to get all of our content. Consider a paid subscription so you don't miss any of our good stuff.
I have one. It is worth it.
Look at that plug we got at the end there. Y'all take care and have a great day.